Days of My Stepsister finale. What a fantastic conclusion to this story. Honestly, if this is it, if this is the story and that was the conclusion, I would be perfectly fine with it. It feels like a nice culmination and a wrap up of everything. Finally, these two characters opening up. I really was wondering if they'd ever top episode 9, because I felt like that could be a nice conclusion as well. Yes, a little bittersweet, but a really nice wrap up there. But honestly, what that kind of created was this thought process that everything's been figured out. But honestly, it just pegged them into another corner. Now they're just not expressing themselves. And it felt like that was the case over the next following 2 episodes, where it felt like these two characters didn't want to open up. And then this finale is really where they're kind of finally opening up. They get some nice advice from 2 people that helps them to kind of realize, hey, be true to yourself. That's really what it is. It's be true to yourself. I love that moment that Ayase finally opens the door and says, come on in, let's talk it out, because I know you're carrying a burden too. I felt it for the longest time. I know what you're going through. Let's talk. Really fantastic stuff. And as per usual, yes, the author of the light novel themselves actually went onto Twitter, posted a massive write-up for the episode itself, and that's what I want to go over today. They get into Shinjou, Fujinami, and additionally a lot of information about Fujinami that wasn't even the light novel itself. Apparently they roped the author into a voicing role in the episode itself, and yes, just really kind of deep diving into the character's thought process at that conclusion point. But let's just dive into it. They open up with thank you to everyone who watched episode 12. This is a final installment of our weekly series where I, the author, share my thoughts on the anime. Please be aware the post contains spoiler, blah, blah, blah. So it's finally the end. Thank you so much for everyone who watched up to this point, and those that read these silly commentaries. I feel a little sad to think that this is the last week. It's so great to see an author is truly happy about their adaptation. It's just so many horror stories where authors just go completely radio silent. They're kind of off the side trying to be positive about it, but you know they're dying inside. This is an author that really does seem like, based on the 2 or 3 that I've read of these, I wish I'd read more of them, they really love this adaptation. Despite there being some points where it feels like the adaptation did something different than the light novel, it does feel like they're going, I understand why they did that. And I understand there's a difference between the light novel and the anime. These are 2 different things. The first one I want to go over on this video is the voice acting role for the store clerk. Yes, apparently the store clerk that said arigatou gozaimasu, that was the actual author, which is really cool. You might have noticed the ending credits, but that convenience store clerk, that was my voice. I was forced to do it. So let me explain. Seriously, really, I swear, I didn't volunteer for this. Actually, I didn't even know this beforehand. On the recording day of the episode 12, I was there as usual to supervise the recording as the original author. But after all the main scenes were finished and everyone was saying their goodbyes, suddenly the director confronted them. They offered me a role saying, we accidentally forgot to arrange for a voice actor for this minor character. Please help me out. And then, after a bit of farce, where I said, hey, isn't there a voice actor here? Isn't Sasaki-san here too? And Nakajima-san? Can't any one of them do a side role? I ended up being taken to the recording booth. At first, it felt out of place, thinking it was inappropriate for an amateur like me to participate in such a professional production. But then I thought, well, even if I get in the way, I'll be there with Saki and Shinjou, so it's fine, right? Lol. However, since I was going to do it, I decided to give it my all. So, for some reason, I was taught how to hold the script by the other cast members who were there watching from behind. See, they were there. They were even having them hold the script. It's just 2 words. They were totally doing it on this purpose. They wanted to show them how it was done. It's so cute. And the director taught me how to project my voice into the microphone. It was just 1 line, but I tried my best. Incidentally, the director gave me feedback on my first take, and the second one was approved. At first, I thought I had to speak out loudly and clearly into the microphone, so I ended up saying, arigatou gozaimasu, with a raised intonation. Then I was told that's how a pub server would say it. When I heard that, I realized, oh, that's so different. Apparently, a convenience store clerk would say arigatou gozaimasu with a relaxed downward intonation. I didn't know there was a difference. Just following that direction didn't make me sound perfect right away. I was confused, thinking, how can I speak so loudly but sound casual? How do I say the word with a downward intonation, clearly into the microphone? After struggling, I finally got the okay. Seeing how people do that at such a higher level, like voice actors, I realized how amazing they are. It was a great learning experience. So cool. It's so cool. Anyways, let's get into the actual episode proper. We actually talk about Shinjou. Yes, the guy that confessed to Saki in the finale. I believe he was the character who required the most delicate handling in the TV anime. Characters who have unrequited love for the heroine are often disliked in romance works across different eras and cultures, and in works aimed at the male audience. They are unfortunately depicted as outright bad guys. This is so true. is so interesting. This author literally was like, I don't want to make this guy into the bad guy. He's not a bad guy. It's just that he fell in love with Saki. That doesn't mean that they're a bad guy. But often with a lot of these different, storytelling methods and different books and whatnot, they're often made into being evil guy. They're the ones getting in the way, basically. In this series, both the original novel and TV anime intentionally avoid depicting characters as simply good guys or bad guys. This is out of respect for Yuta and Saki, as the creators did not want to label them. Such straightforward portrayal are simply not in line with the direction this work aims for. It thoroughly avoids forcefully suggesting a certain impression of a character to the viewer. I believe this is because they believe it leads to more realistic feeling. Yes, thank you. You don't have to have a comically bad guy just to make it okay for them to get dumped and pushed off to the side. You don't have to create tension just by making this threat, basically. Shinjou is not a threat. He's just a person, beyond the axis of whether something is realistic or unrealistic. Shinjou cannot be portrayed as a good guy, nor can he be portrayed as a bad guy. There is no need for a portrayal of unrequited love. He is simply a male classmate who is living his own life, fell in love with Saki within that life, and confessed his feelings. His life is ultimately his own. He did not confess to interfere with Yuta and Saki's relationship. Exactly. It's that simple. And he does not do anything cruel even after being rejected. Yep, he just says, you got someone that you like. All right, take care. During the recording, such direction was given, and as a result, I felt the character was expressed with a truly wonderful flat neutrality. It's such a cool thing. Now here's where it gets more interesting. Speaking of things that were cut from the TV anime, but were in the original novel, there is an incident involving Shinjou. Actually, Shinjou learned at the parent-teacher conference that Yuta and Saki were siblings. During the pool scene, Shinjou had a vague feeling that the atmosphere between Yuta and Saki was good, and he wondered if they were already dating and if there was no chance for him. However, he learned on the day of the parent-teacher conference that they were siblings, and realized that their closeness was due to their sibling relationship. Thinking that might be his chance for him after all, he awaited his opportunity to confess. So interesting. He literally was giving them space. Like, okay, they look like they're together. Okay, I'm out of picture. So that does make sense that they had the whole pool thing. And then I think it was the beginning of last episode, episode 11, you had that scene where Maya was going, hey, Yuta, can I root for somebody else? She was obviously knowing that Shinjou liked Saki. Can I root for, if you're not going to do this, I'll root for him. Everybody's getting the hint there, okay, so this is something that can actually happen. At that point, Shinjou's going, okay, let me try. And again, I love it. It's just not portraying him as an evil guy. He's just a dude that fell in love with Saki. He gave them space. He said, I'm not going to touch that because they're together. Oh, they're siblings? Okay, now let me go ask her. Okay, she rejected me. Moving on. It's so respectful to the characters. And again, it feels so much more natural than having to force some drama where he gets all angry, or he goes and punches Yuta, or he goes and yells at Yuta because Yuta's not, returning her feelings or whatever. It's just, let the characters be in the world. And that's something that I've always loved about this series. This series is so good at, yes, being super slow, but it's super slow in a way that's realistic. I said this at my first impressions. I was afraid this series is going to be slow and not have any punchlines to make it worth sitting through that. Because it feels natural. Natural is kind of boring and slow. It's not forcing something and pushing something. And I think that they did really well in portraying all these characters and their feelings in that regard. Why Saki rejected Shinjou's confession. Shinjou is quite popular. He's a refreshing athlete, stylish, and gentle towards girls. He's the kind of attractive guy that Professor Kudo was talking about. He's very attentive to detail. And if you look only at the surface, he has a similar ability to consider it like Yuta. Plus, he's very smart. He's a high-spec guy. Already seen right here, he's very similar to Yuta. He's basically Yuta. But there's one key difference. I like this key difference they go over. However, in the original novel, Saki realized at this moment that while she's talking to Shinjou, she's always thinking about him in relation to Yuta. When you're in love with somebody, you're going to constantly be comparing. That's what Saki's doing this entire time, comparing to Yuta. For example, she thinks about the subtle differences between Shinjou's considerate nature and Yuta's. Shinjou is aware of the small details and tends to take on heavier burdens. While this is kind, it's not the kind of relationship Saki desires. Saki has previously said, give and take should be more about giving, which not only means being considerate. Yuta doesn't force himself to take on burdens. He generally respects what Saki wants to do and gives her space. Now, when I was reading this point, the thing that I kept jumping in my head, and it makes sense for the last episode, the finale. What happens at the very beginning? The two of them, Shinjou and Saki, go to the store. When they go to the store, what happens when they leave the counter? after after Ghost Sensei, says arigato gozaimasu. Right after they go to walk away, she asks him to carry some of the stuff. And so he reaches in the bag and he pulls out a bag of chips and drops them in her bag. He's carrying everything. He doesn't want to let her. He's very kind, and she even says that. You're very gentlemanly. But he's taking everything. That's what the author right here is pointing out. He takes everything and doesn't let her do her weight and doesn't let her carry anything. He's too kind. He's handicapping her. However, when Saki seems like she's about to be overwhelmed, or when the balance is heavily skewed towards her giving, Yuta will step in firmly and support her. That's the most comfortable way for Saki to be supported. And they kind of mentioned that in the previous episode with what Kudo said. Kudo was basically like, yeah, you're the type that takes everything upon herself, but then when somebody shows some little sign, you jump in there like, okay, Yuta, come on in here. That was basically their entire relationship for the longest time, was that she didn't want to open up at all. Again, that was the whole idea of don't rely on me, I don't rely on you. Let's be here. We don't need to extend ourselves. And he's like, that's cool. That's what I want. It might be easier to understand with a game analogy. If someone said, it must be hard for a beginner, don't worry, I'll help you, and help you with everything from the start to finish, it wouldn't be fun. It's more enjoyable to dive into something out of curiosity, even if there might be a trap, and fail. It's like wanting someone to only help you when you've tried your best, but you're really stuck. If Saki were a game streamer, I think she would really hate people who constantly give instructions. So even though Shinjou is kind and probably charming, it doesn't quite fit her. And Saki realized once again that she likes Yuta and cares about him. The moment she's walking around with him, she's constantly comparing to Yuta and constantly going, I'm more comfortable there. He's a good guy. Again, Shinjou's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. And he's just living in this world and he fell in love with Saki. But he's too much. He takes too much of my burden. I want to carry something. I want to try things. I don't want to constantly be carried around everywhere, princess style. About Fujinami, this is super interesting. Again, some stuff that apparently was not in the actual light novel. Who is Fujinami? And why is she encouraging Yuta, whom she just met? In fact, even in the original novel, although there was some hints scattered throughout, it was never explicitly stated, this is how it is, nor do I intend to. Avoiding an overly detailed explanation of her background is also necessary to maintain the style of living with my stepsister. However, since everyone is enjoying the TV anime so much and you're reading this strange document written by the original author, I feel bad about not giving any information. So I'll reveal a little bit of backstory on Fujinami that I haven't talked about before. Cool stuff. I think it might be already hinted at. But to begin with, Fujinami was a former delinquent and a runaway. Yeah, it was kind of indicating that she was kind of hanging around night lights. I mean, she even said that before, where she was in the previous episode, I believe it was, where she's like, are you here to hit on me or whatever? You think I'm easy or whatever? I thought that was that was a little bit weird. That conversation for me, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I thought that was a little bit weird conversation. Like, she's just out like, what, you think I'm easy and all this kind of stuff? And he's like, what? I'm just sitting here, girl. But it makes sense. She probably has this happen a lot, and she's kind of fed up with it. When she was a middle school student, she lived in the heart of the red light district, or even in its darker corners. She had friends and did things that were definitely not commendable. She was very close to the ugly side of humanity and its desires, and she had a self-destructive tendency, often putting herself in dangerous situations. Her pierced ears are remnant of that time. She lost her parents and was sent to live with an uncaring relative, which caused her to rebel, run away, and vow to be independent and live alone. Very interesting. I didn't actually notice the ear piercing. Honestly, when I watched the episode, I wasn't even really looking. But then I looked at it again, and I'm like, I was curious if it was going to be like piercings all across the ear or something like that. But it's just one single piercing. And if you notice, it's just a piercing, and there's no earring in there. But this is kind of more tragic because in the episode, what the impression that I got was that her parents died. They were really, bashing their parents at their funeral. And she decided to bottle up and close up her feelings. And I thought that went from there straight to her being rebellious and running around the nightlife. I didn't get a sense that she was with one of those relatives, possibly, that were bashing her parents. And that's probably where she bottled up her feelings. And then eventually, her aunt grabbed her and saved her. Thanks to her current foster parent, her aunt, she is now trying to turn her life around and walk a righteous path. However, aunt is also someone who is closer to the underworld. That's interesting. Somebody that probably understood her, because she's living in that world, and her aunt was like, yeah, I was there too. What better person to kind of reach out and pull her out? Someone who reached out to people who could only live in the gray areas. Fujinami is undoubtedly a solid individual, but she also serves as a symbol of what Yuta and Saki might have become if they hadn't found someone to fill their voids of their lives. Yuta and Saki lost one parent each after experiencing things that made them lose faith in humanity. I think what Fujinami went through is like crazy bad. This idea of essentially, again, suddenly losing both of your parents, and then having not only that, but everybody around you, people that were relatives of them, basically bashing them at their funeral. On the other hand, Fujinami lost both of her parents at the same time and went through experiences that made them lose faith in humanity. Yuta and Saki still have one parent left and met each other through remarriage, which filled the void of their lives and prevented them from taking that final step. However, Fujinami is someone they've already crossed paths with. She can be said to have experienced the future that Yuta and Saki would most dread. Of course, that doesn't mean she's completely unfortunate. She's rediscovered that experience and is now diligently studying with an enlightened perspective gained from her extraordinary experiences. So she's likely to have a very good life ahead of her. Really cool stuff. So that's the kind of life that Fujinami lived. Why does she support Yuta so strongly? I wonder why her parents were opposed by all the relatives when they got married. Was it because one of them had a questionable background? It's clear that something caused such a negative reaction from all their relatives. Incidentally, Fujinami's conversation with Yuta often paralleled Saki's conversation with Professor Kudo. Why'd they delve into ethical issues at that particular time? Yeah, I like the fact that in the previous episode, they had the teacher Kudo, like right after talking to Saki, goes over to a board and on there it has some stuff about like basically incest. I'll leave the rest to your imagination, but in any case, there must have been something about Fujinami's parents that made their relatives shun them on moral grounds, leading to their isolation. Yeah, I kind of wonder, I mean, the way that they're writing this, it kind of makes you believe that possibly Fujinami's parents were siblings, and that caused them to be shunned so much or mocked and ridiculed. But there's also another side of me that kind of believes that just because her aunt was in this dark underground area of society, that possibly just one of the parents used to be maybe Yakuza or something like that. Perhaps she resigned herself to being criticized by her relatives, thinking it was unavoidable. Maybe she acknowledged that her parents had their flaws too, but deep down, she must have loved her parents and felt angry at being criticized. She finally come to the selfish but honest realization that it wasn't her parents' fault, but rather the fault of those who couldn't accept them. That's why she wanted to be an ally to those that were shunned by others on moral grounds. I can't help but hope. Such a cool way of kind of seeing things. I mean, that was the impression that I got from Fujinami in the episode, this idea that she sees Yuta and goes, you got that same stupid face that I always had. It's like the whole idea of I'm looking at my old self in the mirror. What is wrong with you? What are you bottling up? What are you keeping locked up inside of you? You have something that you want to say, but you're not saying it. Main key thing there, and something that personally hit me so hard in the episode, was Fujinami admitting the idea of locking up her emotions. This happened, and what could I have done? I could have got angry. I could have got mad. But what I did? Locked it up. Lock it up. Put it away. Don't express it. And he's in that same position. She's like, you have those feelings, and you're not showing them. I can't. Yes, you can. Feelings are selfish. Say what you want to say. But it's wrong. I can't do that. Say it anyway. I truly envy those who can't understand the emotions of Yuta, Saki, and Fujinami. It must be wonderful to feel so carefree. Yeah, like being able to express everything. I mean, I have this feeling all the time. This feeling of like, nobody cares. Why bother getting emotional when nobody cares? Don't express yourself. It's only going to cause problems for others. I think that's the main key thing for me. Most of the time, whenever I don't want to express my emotions, whenever I don't want to just scream and yell and just want to get it all out, show that frustration, show that sorrow, show that I'm feeling like I'm falling apart. Keep it bottled up. Because all it's going to do if I show it, all it's going to do is cause others to be worried. It's going to cause others to be scared. For those who have been deeply hurt and have experiences that makes it hard to trust others, I understand the need to protect oneself by not expecting anything from others. However, reaching a state where you truly expect nothing is incredibly difficult. It's almost like the enlightenment a monk achieves after years of meditation, or something that comes with a lifetime of experiences. Even when you consciously try to expect nothing, deep down, people will always hope for something. Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting thing, especially for like elderly. That's kind of why I always kind of respect a lot of people that are older than me, and especially the elderly. And the idea that they have that feeling whenever you're around them that everything is fine. It is really kind of that. There's a lot of elderly people. They've just been through it all. They're at that end of that rope. They're at the end of their lives. They've achieved everything they want to achieve, or they feel like they can't achieve anything else. So they got that moment of just kind of existing. I'm good. I'm at the end of the road. Everything's settled. My grandchildren are fine. My children are fine. I've done what I need to do. I've left a legacy behind. Everything's done. Is that feeling of like not having to worry about the next day because who cares? I mean, only so many years left. And it almost feels like calming when being around them because they're just in the day. They're in the now. What's going on now? Whereas everybody else is worried about 30 years in the future. Where am I going to be in 30 years? I believe the director made the central theme of the anime, using it as backbone for every scene. Definitely feel it. The sequence of events after Yuta's confession. This is a big moment. Such a good moment. This is my favorite part, continuing from episode 9. I know, like I said, 9. It was all about 9. 9 was such a good episode. I love every part about the sequences of scenes. It made me excited, relieved, and even cry. While the overall flow is almost the same as the original novel, there's some unique expressions in the TV anime. After Saki says that Yuta's feelings aren't romantic, but rather those of a sister, and Yuta is left speechless. The scene in the novel ends with them going to school without further conversation. Very interesting. I think that would have definitely broken it up a bit there, because I was actually very happy that Yuta got up. Like, there's that feeling that a lot of times where something like that happens and they just kind of separate for a while. But no, Yuta immediately gets up and goes, "Go finish this. I have to finish this. I just put it out there. I have to finish this." Yuta chases after Saki to the front door, and she mutters, "I don't mind," then pulls Yuta's hand and takes him into her room. However, in the TV anime, Saki says, "What if it's just your feelings for a sister are a little too strong?" Then seeing Yuta silent, she says, "Sorry," and runs to her room. Yeah, I think that's kind of the troubling thing about the whole situation, and I think it's the central theme of this episode is this idea that Saki has been tortured this entire season. Like, it was pretty quickly, I don't know, like 3 or 4. Very quickly in the series, we realize that Saki is in love with Yuta. And she keeps bottling up and closing it away, and she doesn't want to tell him this entire series. And then finally, Yuta is saying it to her. Even though she's finally given up on it, he's finally saying it back to her. And I'm like, this girl knows what he's going through right here. She knows exactly what Yuta's going through right now. Because of this, in the TV anime, Yuta is given more challenge to overcome with Saki. He's faced with a challenge of how to act towards a closed door. It's that locking away, keep out of my emotions. By the way, everyone, do you remember? When I explained in episode 6, I wrote in this work, a closed door is a metaphor for the mind inside the head. Whenever the two characters have a deep conversation and try to understand each other on a deeper level, it often happens in a closed room. Interesting. In episode 12, it's of course Saki's room. They have this deep conversation in a space that is even more personal to Saki. Considering this, let's look at the scene. Saki, who escapes from Yuta's confession and locks herself in a room, thinking deeply about everything. Yuta, who gently, or perhaps timidly, knocks the door of Saki's heart, bites his lip when there's no reply, and almost regrets his confession. I can see that. Damn it. Because again, what both of them have in their mind, Saki especially has expressed this, that I don't want to do this because it's going to ruin our new happy parents. Our parents are both happy right now. They're finally happy. They've been miserable for a long time. I might mess that up. The sequence of events just before the door opens emphasizes that they're about to delve deeper into each other and try to understand each other, considering that this is the climax of the first season. Climax of the first season? Is that a confirmation we're getting a second season? Wasn't a fantastic direction? The sound of knocking on the door is also quite amazing. Yuta knocks, and then Saki gently knocks back a moment later. It's not just a sound, you know? Even though neither of them says a word, they're acting. I really like this delicate expression, and I thought it would be wonderful the crystallization of a subtle technique. The original expression in the TV anime continues after this. When Yuta is dragged into Saki's room, hugged, and asked, "Are you relieved?" And then have the scene where they discuss what kind of relationship they should settle into. Saki can't say everything and bursts into tears. In the original novel, she doesn't cry. Very interesting. But no, I love this, again, because Saki knows more than him, because Saki knows what he's going through. Are you relieved? Like, because she wanted that. She's wanted this whole time, and so she knows damn well what he wants. He wants to be hugged, wants to get closer. Previously, I said I imagine living with my younger sister-in-law as if Yuta and Saki are real people, and I was simply writing a private novel about them. Also, I said the TV anime is like a director observing those two and animating them. I think that's reflected in the sequence in how Saki expresses her emotions in the original novel and in the TV anime. Through my filter, Saki didn't cry, but through the director's filter, she did. That's how it is. Or so I thought. Later, when I asked the director, they told me initially Saki wasn't supposed to cry in that scene either. As they were cutting the storyboard, tears naturally flowed. In the series, we've avoided expressions that suggest that one-sided view or emotion of the viewer. This is true in both the original novel and the TV anime. So if those tears had been shed with the intent of making the viewers feel moved because of the final episode, or we should make them cry because of the climax, I would have probably felt a sense of incongruity, even if I wouldn't have complained because it was different from the novel. I would simply felt, that's different. And I don't think that I would have been so deeply into the TV anime version as I am now. But Saki's tears were too natural. It is true that through the director's filter, Saki, who has been depicted in the TV anime from episode 1 to episode 11, is crying in this scene in episode 12. It wasn't with the intention of manipulating the viewers or forcing a suggestion, but Saki cried because she was meant to. That's why, even though it's a different expression from the novel, I, the original author, was able to happily accept this development and be moved by it. That's interesting, because a character crying is extremely important. That says a lot. A crying, willing to show those tears to him in front of her, that's huge. So to have that different than the original novel, but the author be like, yeah, she should cry. It's not saying that my novel was wrong. It's just saying that in this expression, in this adaptation, in the anime, this makes sense. I know a lot of people don't like change like that, but I think the ability for them to accept that is very important. I have expectations of Ayase, so I hope Ayase will have expectations of me. These words spoken by Yuta, as he hesitantly took Saki's hand, were so kind and reassuring. Incidentally, this line was also original in the TV anime. While it's a necessary line to bring the anime together as a complete work within one core, it's clear they tried to extract it from the original novel as much as possible, rather than simply adding it for the sake of the anime. In the original novel, when he hears about Fujinami, he thinks about the following. I guess humans are like that. The conversation we had that night I felt Ayase crossed my mind. At that time, as soon as it was just the two of us, Ayase said to me, I don't expect anything from you, so I don't want you to expect anything from me. I remember her probing expression at the time. Ayase said that to me, who was going to live with her, and I felt relieved to hear those words. It was because I thought that she was the same kind of person as me. I wonder if I missed something about the true meaning behind those words, which, depending on how you heard them, could have been considered extremely rude to say to someone that you had just met. Did she really not expect anything at all? And those words came back to me. I thought that my father was just getting married. I tried to think that, but did I really not have any expectations at all? Very interesting. Like, you can technically in that situation, because he felt relieved by her saying that, because he felt like that's something that he was okay with. Like, yeah, I kind of want that too. But did he really think that? If he were to say those same words, what was that expectation? In the original novel, there was a part where Yuta recalls his initial promise to Saki as a reason that he decides to confess. Having expectations means expecting the other person to show some kind of affection you desire. It's expecting to be forgiven, even if you're imposing your feelings on the other person. Initially, they drew a line between themselves by promising not to do that to each other, trying to avoid the possibility of being hurt by having their expectations betrayed. However, now they want to have expectations of each other. So Yuta proposes that they allow themselves to have expectations. That's the flow of his thoughts in the original novel. Very, very interesting. And again, that goes to the entire theme of this finale. It's this idea of them constantly kind of putting up those barriers. Even though at the very beginning of this episode, Saki is going, I want to be more open. I've learned things. I've learned to open myself up to people. I've learned that if you want something, you have to say something. I've learned that if you want something from somebody, you have to hope that they will actually express it, opening yourself up. But there's one person I haven't been doing this to. My brother, Yuta, the one I fell in love with. Although he doesn't say the line, I have expectations of Ayase, so I hope that Ayase will have expectations of me too. Emotionally speaking, it can be said that Yuta in the original novel is taking a step forward with a similar thought as the TV anime. This is another aspect that makes me feel like the climax of the series is by no means simply original animation. So cool. There seems to be quite a stir amongst the viewers regarding the blank subtitles, blank and blank. I enjoyed seeing everyone make various predictions as to what it might mean, whether anything would fit in there. As those who are watching episode 12 may already know, the correct answer is tomorrow and tomorrow, and simply leaving the blanks as they are. The conclusion that Yuta and Saki arrive at throughout the episode 12 is a relationship where neither lovers nor siblings. I kind of caught that too. It really does feel like they're kind of going, let's just figure this out. When we're in public, we're going to make sure that nobody knows that we're more than siblings, but we're going to figure this out. Or perhaps both lovers and siblings. To put it bluntly, they are trying to form a special bond as brother and sister-in-law. I understand that this blank symbolizes a relationship that cannot be labeled. Yeah, I kind of get that. This idea of like not being able to define what they actually have. Again, and that's really cool because it's almost like the story, and I feel like this has been the case for this story. It's not really playing this entire story out like your typical Wincest, Brocon, Siscon type of story. It's not going for, yes, they don't get together. It's not going for them getting together. It's kind of in that middle area where it's like, let's just see how this naturally flows. The words are finally filled at the end, tomorrow and tomorrow, or day after day. I think they're a message of hope from the director to Yuta and Saki, wishing their tomorrows will continue to intertwine forever. I feel like these words were included with the hope that their lives will continue together, and they want to be that way. Lastly, the TV anime is a single piece of work that spans over 12 episodes of one core. As the original author, I was able to watch all 12 episodes together in advance and share the film before the broadcast. Thanks to this, I was able to fully enjoy the creativity poured into the works by director and the animation production team in the most ideal way. To meeting the mysterious and somewhat precarious Ayase Saki in episodes 1 to 3, to feeling the sense of great change in Yuta's past and new relationship intertwined from 4 to 6, to being disturbed by the growing emotions from episodes 7 to 9, and to having Saki's childish side gradually ingrained in me from episode 1 to 8, only to explode in episode 9. And then in episode 10 and 11, Yuta and Saki explore their new relationship and confronted whether their feelings were genuine, and finally, everything culminating in episode 12. All these sequences connected beautifully, creating an ultimate viewing experience. So true. That's pretty much how my mindset went with the flow of the series. It's these little pinnacle points. And again, I'm so stuck on episode 9. I think episode 9 was so freaking incredible. Actually, right after watching episode 12 of the Shirobako, which is technically the final, the master basically, that they're going to kind of give out, I was moved that I felt like a returning to adolescence. I told my editor, you don't have to send this if you think it's weird, but if it's okay, please send it to the animation team. And I had them send a long message of thanks and impressions to the animation production team. The motivation behind writing long explanations and impressions during the broadcast period also came from the momentum of that emotion. I hope that everyone who enjoyed it will watch the TV broadcast, and if they like it, watch it all together. Also, as the original author and as a fan of the anime, I would be happy if you could keep this wonderful visual work with you in various forms and make it one of your precious life memories. So cool. The TV anime ended for now, but there's still the novel, comic version. YouTube will continue. For those of you who are curious about Yuta and Saki's future or miss their presence, please check out the other forms of media. Thank you to everyone who read my very long explanation and impressions. I feel kind of sad to think there won't be any more next week. Or rather, my hands are reluctant to stop writing this article. But if I keep going on like this, I'll never finish this article, so I'll stop here. Thank you so much, Ghost Sensei. That was so freaking good. I really badly want to go back and read every single one of these, but they're just such good write-ups. And again, I think the thing that really stands out the most is really kind of seeing that love for, even if there is changes in the anime adaptations, there's an explanation as to why it seems to work. And that, again, like I said, with so many other adaptations and the authors being involved with them just kind of seemingly silent or seemingly not happy with what's going on. They just can't say something. But there definitely does seem like a lot of love that this writer had for the adaptation. Again, getting these little insights are really super cool. So I loved it. Again, the finale was fantastic. I really enjoyed, again, this kind of culmination of everything. Saki feeling like she's bottling everything up, needs to say something. Yuta finally says something, and she's like, no, why are you saying this? I've been struggling with it. That's like literally at the table. That's what it felt like. As Saki's going, no, it can't be. You're just, as a brother and sister, right? No, that's too much. You're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to do that. I've been telling myself for this long period of time, we can't do that. And then she rushes off. Again, this is technically 4 straight months. Probably about at least 3 of them is her constantly in love with Yuta and not able to say anything. And again, choosing at that one point, I need to cut the hair, disconnect. I'm the sister. Be the sister. Be the sister. Lock away those feelings. Lock them up in that diary and throw them out. And then finally he's saying it. She's like, damn it. And she runs off. And again, opening that door is literally her going, I know what you're going through. I know how much you're struggling. I've been doing this too. And then embracing him is literally saying, this is what you want, right? Let's figure it out. And again, they both sit there and they figure it out. They talk it out. We're going to figure this out. We don't know what it is, but we're going to figure it out. And again, that's, I think, a really great place to leave it. So fantastic. Love it. It's definitely going to go up there. Whew, I don't know. This might be top 3 or top 4 of the season for me. I don't know that it's going to take, I don't know. At this point, I might say that for a new series, it might go in number 2 slot. It's definitely not going to take number 1, but it's fighting up there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what you think of this feedback from the author themselves. Really cool little read here. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate what it does. Until next time, y'all take care.